Thank you all for coming this morning to the 2022 State of the City for the City of Gilroy. It's nice to see this number of people here. We don't get this full house, as full a house for council meetings. So this is very nice to see everybody turning out. Thank you. I'm Mayor Blankley, my second year as mayor, my second State of the City, and because we're not in the thick of COVID this time, I've got a little more optimism that I can throw into this speech. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a lifelong Gilroy resident. I'm a CPA by trade. I have 2 adult children with my husband Steve, and they're all engineers. Not terribly different from CPAs. We're all just geeky enough to all get along, so we do well. I'm also proudly the second woman mayor of Gilroy after Roberta Hewen in 150 years, so that's a proud fact that I like to share. Our struggles in Gilroy are ever present, but we do have a lot to be proud of and a lot to look forward to. And with that, I'm just going to get right into what those things are. And beginning with economic and commercial development. So I know many of you have heard of the Sharks Ice coming to Gilroy, wanting to come to Gilroy, wanting to build, wanting to operate ice rinks, 2 ice rinks to be specific, at the Gilroy Sports Park. And the Gilroy Sports Park is south of town, a large piece of property that is only partially developed with softball fields and such, and we are getting really close to bringing that to council. And I know people are thinking, you've been saying that, but I mean it this time. If not in June, it will be right after the break that we will have a term sheet, God willing, to bring to the council, because that's the first step, is the city council has to approve the parameters of what this is. And then we start getting into the real nitty-gritty of how to build it, right? How to build it, what it will be, when that's all going to happen, what that means to Gilroy, and that sort of thing. So very much looking forward to that. And it's progressing as it should. So that's the best I can say on that right now. Then with Gilroy Gardens, the city has been considering something more than just the use of the 70 acres that is the Gilroy Gardens theme park. That is a property of 500 plus acres, and the park itself is only 70. And we had to go through, starting in 2020, the state of California passed this thing called the Surplus Lands Act. And anytime public property that is vacant wants to be used for something, anything, you have to go through this thing called the Surplus Lands Act first, which is a process of notifying the fact that we are considering doing something with this land. If you've got either an objection to it or a plan for housing, that's basically what they're looking for, we need to make sure that there's not an offer to do that first. We have been clear. We've gone through that process. There has been no proposals to build housing or anything that would stop us from trying to look into adventure, recreation kinds of activities for that area. So that's going to be something upcoming. Always a subject of interest is our downtown. And if you haven't already heard, the city was granted we applied for the grant and we got it, $3.9 million. It's through Caltrans, and it's a clean up Caltrans, clean California local grant is what it's specifically called. But what it means to us is that the alleyways between Lewis Street and 7th Street along the railroad tracks, so on the east side of the buildings that are downtown, as well as between 4th Street and 7th Street on the west side of the buildings downtown, also known as Gourmet Alley. Those are going to see some significant improvements this year and next year. And by significant, I mean capital improvements. I mean the asphalt, the concrete, the curbs, the storm drains, all the stuff, the lighting, things that maybe you don't think of as, it's not the planter boxes, it's not the murals, it's not the painting things, but it's all that really substantial stuff. And conduit going underground so that when PG&E can underground all the wires there, they just have to feed it through the conduit. They don't have to tear up the asphalt. So those are going to be significant improvements. They're going to make a mess downtown in the meantime. I hope everybody welcomes that, because that's a significant improvement. And together with that, the City Council has approved this 140 space parking area behind the Neon Exchange and the Art Center downtown, so between 6th and 7th Streets. And that's going to be such a large parking space that it can also be dedicated from time to time for things like art and wine festivals, farmers market, any downtown theme-based event that attracts people again to the downtown. So that's going to be a state-of-the-art parking lot. It's going to be landscaped and have charger stations for electric cars. It's going to be beautiful and state-of-the-art and really improve the downtown as well. All in all, this is a $6.5 million investment in downtown between the grant and this parking lot. So I hope everybody looks forward to that and can appreciate the changes that that will bring. A commercial center, one of the most rundown commercial centers in Gilroy has been at 10th Street, where O'Henry's Donuts, for those of you who've been in Gilroy a long time, O'Henry's Donuts used to be there. It's not terribly, it's across the street, across Chestnut from where Orchard Supply used to be. And that is being completely renovated by developers. So that's going to bring a very different visual to that intersection. And on top of that, we've got industrial development proposals for many of the vacant properties around the 101 and Pacheco Pass intersection. And we're working through all of the things that allow you to move forward, the environmental impact reports, the traffic studies, ag mitigation, all those kinds of things. But the best news about all of this activity is that there's interest in Gilroy for commercial, industrial, for things that bring jobs, right? And that's what we need at any level. Of course, we'd like them at higher levels, but jobs at any level are more jobs than we have right now. And it's important, and it's nice to see Gilroy getting noticed for really the advantages of our location and all that we have to offer. And this year we started January, we're running all of 2022. The City of Gilroy partnered with the Economic Development Corporation, the Chamber of Commerce, Visit Gilroy, to do this Why Gilroy campaign. And that's an advertisement that's going every month in the Silicon Valley Business Journal to put us on the map, so to speak, that Gilroy is open for business. And so that's what that's the message we're trying to send, and it seems to be working. We just have to work through all the changes that that brings and all the studies that we need to do to make sure that we're doing these things the best possible way. Also exciting is that, tech giants like Amazon and Google have purchased land in Gilroy. Well, Google is not in the incorporated city limits. They are in the county, but adjacent to Gilroy. They're not doing anything with the land yet, or there's been no applications to the county for it, but it's kind of exciting to know that a name that big is looking at us, aware. And then Amazon, it's really Amazon Web Services that purchase land, not the Amazon that we shop with, but Amazon Web Services. They're also called AWS, and they are the data center company. And they purchase land near the outlets, between the outlets and the school district offices on Camino Arroyo. And they would like to put a 218,000 square foot, something around there, data center. And that's going through the processes too. So these are all things that are helping Gilroy to grow. With respect to our streets, transportation infrastructure, I'm going into that. We have applied for a $19.5 million federal grant to help us build the 10th Street Bridge. I don't know if I need to describe that any further, because that has been such a long-awaited thing that I think all you need to do is say 10th Street Bridge and people know what you're talking about. But if you don't, this is on the southwest part of Gilroy, and it is meant to ease traffic, particularly emergency response traffic, from Gilroy on 10th Street over to the newer developments that are happening in that Glen Loma area south of town. It's a very, very expensive bridge because it's taken so long to get it built. And so that $19.5 million, if we get it, it will require the city to come up with another 20% of the cost in order to get that bridge built. But that is a challenge we would look forward to. Another, I think, exciting, it's not a grant, but we signed, and by we, I mean those of us who are representing Gilroy on the mobility partnerships, mobility transportation. We call it, it's a partnership between South Santa Clara County and Northern San Benito County. And we are trying to get all the funding to keep things progressing forward with the Highway 25-101 interchange And then in addition to that, we asked for funding to start, just to get the process going, the $2 million, it's not a lot, but it starts the process of getting a 4th lane on 101 from where it is 4 lanes now, north of Morgan Hill and Cochrane, all the way to that 101-25 interchange. So this is how it starts. It takes forever, everything takes forever, but it's got to start somewhere. So it was just in April 11th, that we, the members of that partnership, signed these letters asking for the funding to get those things going. So I'm pretty excited about that. And I'm also excited about, granted, we don't know when, but high-speed rail is looking to significantly improve, I call it transform, because that's what it is, the Gilroy Transit Center. The when is the big question, but if that happens, our transit center will mean that everyone here will have access to public transportation in all directions. Doesn't matter which way you're going. By rail, by bus, it's going to be the 2nd largest transportation hub to Deerdorf in San Jose on this Merced to San Jose stretch of high-speed rail. So probably more than a decade out. I'm told that in 2 to 3 years we will see some sort of activity there so people can believe that it's really happening. But funding is always going to be the thing, and this thing costs so much money that any step of the way could be where you're waiting for more money. So I don't want to mislead people into thinking this is something that's happening right away. Right now, I'm really trying hard to just keep the public transportation services that we have from going down, because it's been hard. We lost our express buses 2 years ago. We still haven't been able to get a 4th Caltrain that we have been, since Kat Tucker's here with us, a former council member, and she's been planting that seed for a long, long time. It's tough. And it's increasingly important that transportation from the South Santa Clara County, be viable, because this is where the housing push is going to happen more. This is not only where the land space is, but it's also where things are more affordable. No matter how you define affordable, it will always be more affordable the farther away you get from the job centers. And the job center is in Silicon Valley to the north. That's the job center. So the farther we get away, that's not just Gilroy, that's Los Banos, Hollister. But all that traffic has to feed north to get to the jobs, because the job centers aren't here. So it's important that transportation be available, and that's what we're pushing for. We're trying to get there. The Gilroy City Council approved an additional $2 million to go into funding our streets. And that's a subject that many people have been watching, because our streets have been deteriorating. It's not just that we aren't doing things to improve them, we aren't even doing enough to keep them from declining further. And the grade of our streets comes in the form of what's called PCI, Pavement Condition Index, and that's a score of 0 to 100. And Gilroy's number has gone from, it used to be at 70, which is considered okay, to below 70, to now right in the 60s, and we haven't even seen another study to see how much farther down we are from there. So what this city council has approved is enough funding to prevent a further decline. It's not going to improve. And anybody who's interested in what that 5-year plan is, you can contact Public Works, right? They have the map that will show you which streets are scheduled for improvement in this first cycle, this first year. And keep in mind that there are some streets in this town that have gotten so bad that they're not going to see attention for a long time, because it just costs too much money. When you let things go that far down, it's pretty tough to use the limited funding that you have to repair them at the expense of others that are not yet that far down, but are going to be if you don't put the money there. So that's the game, or the strategy, I should say, that we are looking at there. And so for specifics on what streets to expect to see improvements, you need to see what the map is. And this is year 1 of 5. And it is certainly my goal to make sure that we stick to this level of funding for the 5-year plan. So we'll pray, okay? Pray that we can all make that happen. I wanted to touch a little bit on housing, and that's just to say that I think many of you know that in 2016, the voters of Santa Clara County passed this thing called Measure A, which which raised almost $1 billion to help with housing insecurities. It was supposed to be specific to housing. And that's for that money's for the benefit of all of Santa Clara County. Gilroy so far has seen one housing development that benefited from Measure A funds. And that development is called the Gateway Apartments, and they are on Monterey Street, south of 10th Street, and on the east side. And they are 75 units, 37 of which are low income, and then 38 of which I think are very low income, or something like that. There might be some that are extremely low income. But when you hear those terms, understand that low income, extremely low, those numbers, that the amount that constitutes that definition is a percentage of area median income. And that's the thing that I think is really important for those of us in Gilroy to understand, is area median income is Palo Alto to Gilroy. And you take the income levels of that whole area, and then you do the math as to how many, what is the income level, where do you have the same number of people earning above a certain level as below a certain level. That's what median means. It's not exactly average, it's median. And that number, because it's countywide, doesn't necessarily mean that in Gilroy, that it's reflective of Gilroy, because Gilroy's level of income, if you were just to look at area median income of Gilroy alone, it would be a much lower number. So when you're doing housing that is meant to be affordable, you need to understand that it's a county definition. It's by county, affordable by county. So chances are, something that is considered very low income in Gilroy, which, by the way, for a family of 4, would mean that you're earning 80%, well, very low income would be 60% of the area median income. So that's, it's almost $100,000 that you still have to be earning, and yet that's very low income. So you end up getting people who maybe could afford to move to Gilroy, as opposed to building a house for someone who's already in Gilroy. So Measure A funds are helpful to build housing that can maybe be more locally focused, but it's almost completely consumed already, $1 billion, and they didn't really even start until 2017. But it is good to see that the developments that are being built, the densities that will make things more affordable, are being more centered around places that have access to transit and access to jobs, which is something that Gilroy doesn't quite have yet. So looking ahead, we are working on getting at least one other Measure A funded project. We're trying to get it near the transit center on a piece of property that the county owns. I don't know how long that will take or if we'll be successful, but I just want the public to know that we are aware, that we only have one Measure A funded housing project and would like to get at least another. All right. I'd also like to let everyone know that 9 miles of fiber optic cable is being added to the city. So you know where we're all going, right? The internet is just the thing. And having a greater highway capacity in our city is something that we appreciate, and is also causing some disruption and things, but 9 miles, that's nothing to sneeze at. The drought, we all know we're in the drought. We all have to be conscientious about the water usage, particularly our outdoor water usage. I hope some of you, if you didn't come, you read the spotlight that I did last month on SCRAW, our South County Wastewater Treatment Plant, where we are really upping the game of recycled water. And Saeed, who's our manager out there, is really, the best person for that job. I think the Dispatch just ran an article too that he wrote, on the improvements going out there. So if you haven't read that, please do, because we are very conscientious not only of water usage, but of the environment here in Gilroy, and that's a great example of that. Strengthening our workforce is something that goes without saying. Our workforce is who we are. The city of Gilroy cannot be without our workforce, just like any company couldn't be. So looking out for them and making sure that we can keep them able to work and live is something that we're always in tune with. I want to give kudos to Gilroy Unified School District, because when we talk about improving properties and the look, I was talking about the commercial center on 10th Street, don't we love the improvements to Brownell School? And wait till you see South Valley Middle School. That used to be Gilroy High School, for those of us who've been in Gilroy a long, long time. And wow, just I mean, it's really nice to see a property that has lacked attention and the money to improve it for so long, to be able to get what it needs now. And so I think by the opening of this next school year, you're going to be able to see a huge improvement out there. I'd like to close like I did with my State of the City last year, even though last year was just recorded, and just ask us all to remember that we're all the people of Gilroy, all of us with our diversity and inclusivity, each of us doing our best with our own financial and emotional struggles, and people who give of ourselves day in and day out. If you've lived here long enough, you know that. This is quite the town. Thank you for being part of this Gilroy family. And so with that, I'm going to open to questions. I want to thank our city administrator, Jimmy Forbes, who's here. He can help me answer some questions. I would like to point out that Councilmember Dion Bracco is here in the audience. And I'd also like to introduce or point out our city clerk, Ty Pham, who is responsible for how the chambers look today and the signage you saw outside. All really great. And thank you for this wonderful turnout. Really, really, really proud. So I'm clapping for you guys. Okay? All right. Any questions? Yes?
Hi. You talked about the 10th Street Bridge, and we're really happy to hear about that. I know with all this stuff they're doing up in, Glen Loma, that Winchester is supposed to have a bridge. Is that going to be the city's responsibility, or does the developers take care of that, or is there any thought that it might be done anytime in the near future?
Well, that bridge has always, it's in the development agreement with Glen Loma, excuse me, to be built, but it's always been the responsibility of the city to pay for it. So it depends on how you define responsibility. To me, whoever's responsible to pay for it is the one who's responsible for it. So it is the city who's responsible to pay for it. And that has been a tough one to get into to figure out how to pay for. Again, because the costs just are unbelievably high. Mm-hmm. Yes?
I had a question. We heard, well, I read in the Gilroy Dispatch about the PG&E transformers that were to be located behind Gilmore, the alley. And my question is, what kind of impact has that been having on new businesses trying to open? It seems like some new businesses in the downtown area have tried to open, but yet nothing's been happening for months and months. And I was curious how much of an impact that's hooking up with PG&E has had on those businesses over there.
Yeah. So the downtown buildings, as you might know, are owned by individuals or private property. They're privately owned. So the city doesn't. They're not city property. It's not city property. City of Gilroy, though, our staff has very much facilitated in trying to find out what roadblocks the building owners may be having to getting PG&E to turn power on. I might not be the best person to speak to that because I'm not the city staff person who's been in those discussions. I will ask if you would, Jimmy, if you would like to speak to that, because I know Jimmy has been very much involved in that, and that will answer your question.
Yeah, actually, the long-standing kind of rumor was that those buildings didn't have power. They all have power, and most of them have a maximum of 200 amps. So if you know your residential unit, you probably have 100 or 150. What is happening is some of the businesses that are going in there need 600 amps. And a good example is a brewery. Brewery takes a lot of power, a lot of energy. And so the buildings were never created for that type of operation. Well, when you expand from 200 to 600 amps, that's a significant investment by the property owner. PG&E is not paying for that, by the way. The property owner has to pay for it, and you have to figure out where to locate it because it takes a lot of space. So these are all challenges that really are all, we've tried to help. I tell people that we don't have a red line to PG&E. They don't treat us any better or any worse for that than anybody else. So they're a big corporation that doesn't really look at the city as any better advocate or anybody else. But at the end of the day, it's on the property owners. And so when you do, it has delayed business. There is a business down there who's been waiting. for almost a year to get that upgrade, and I don't know if they're any closer, but we're not privy really to those discussions either. But we do try to help, we do try to get people at the table, and we try to make sure we're not in the way, and that's the best, role we can fill.
Thank you for that answer. Does that answer your question? Any others?
Can you explain a
What
little
if-
bit?
You didn't raise your hand,
What
Gavin.
are we gonna do about cell towers? Make it, get us from a 2-bar to maybe a 4-bar?
What are we going to do about cell towers?
Yes, we're 2-bar city, now we're gonna move all these to 3 or 4.
No, it's just funny you ask it that way, because usually when people are asking me things, they don't want cell towers. They think that there's too many bad things radiating off of them or something. I don't have an answer that what we are doing. We, the city, don't provide cell towers, or it's like asking us about, or asking me about cable service, or people that say, can't you do something about Frontier? Can't you do something about Charter? No, they're private companies. They offer the services that they offer. You choose to use them or you don't use them. But again, I will go here and see if there's a different answer. Is there a different, okay, no, okay, just checking myself.
We're gonna mean a 2-bar city.
So cell towers are for the companies that put them in, which I know AT&T, I think, puts some in, but I think they're, to my knowledge, none are being put in right now. I do not know of any being put in right now. Kat?
I don't understand exactly what it means at 9 miles of fiber optics.
Oh,
So, can you explain what do you mean and how it benefits Gilroy? You mean underground? You mean
Yes,
overhead?
underground.
What does it mean exactly?
I don't know that either one of us are really good at this,
Okay.
but I'll
I can try to.
You try first.
Okay, I'll try first. Underground, yes, it's underground because if you haven't lived somewhere where they're doing it, where I live, they've dug up the street, certainly downtown on Eagleberry, 4th Street, you've seen road closures. These are underground fiber optic cables, meant to meant to increase the capacity of internet usage, anything that fiber optic cable needs. So it's for information technology to be able to travel.
So when they were digging up Santa Teresa, was that part of that?
That was part of that.
Oh, okay, all right.
That was absolutely part of that. We have a lot of questions on that, people thinking, and for a while, we weren't even sure what that was for, and then we realized, oh, it's the fiber optic companies putting, yeah.
The best way to really is think about a 2-lane highway that goes to a 6 or an 8-lane highway. That's all I know about.
Yeah,
On board, and I just wondered how it was doing.
yeah. Question over here?
Yeah, my name is Ruben. I got here a little late, but I wanted to ask you about the high-speed rail. Did you give an update on that?
I did.
Oh.
Yeah, the update on that was that the High Speed Rail Authority last April approved it's called Alternative 4. If you've been following the maps, there were 4 different routes that the Merced to San Jose stretch could take, and Alternative 4, it is the one approved, is 4, Alternative 4, which does go through downtown and will electrify tracks all the way to Dearborn.
That part I know about, but how do you feel about that, the finalized plan, I guess? Personally, what is Gilroy position in that? Are we okay with it, or with the current plan that's been adopted?
Okay, well, I mean, are we okay with it? Gilroy is a whole bunch of people, right?
I mean-
City staff,
I mean, like the city, the Chamber of Commerce and all that. Do they feel comfortable with it, or?
I don't know that the Chamber of Commerce has given an opinion. I believe our city staff supported Alternative 4. Is that correct?
Yeah, we should.
Yeah, so of the 4 alternatives, we support Alternative 4. I don't know what position, if any, the Chamber of Commerce has taken.
Well, we're gonna wait and see, I guess.
We're gonna wait and see. I'm afraid it is quite a long ways off. But I do sure like the idea of transportation access myself. I can only speak for myself. This is not something that's before the city council. To me, transportation that's when you can access anything, that's always good. Okay, you had the question first, right? Yes.
Why does the city of Gilroy have a not secure website? That means I won't ever use it because I'm afraid something nasty will get into my computer.
Oh, I cannot speak to the security of our website.
It says not secure.
Okay. So I guess I'll need to get back to you with an answer on that because I'm not our IT person. Okay? Okay? And yes, Alan?
The 3.9 million improvement on,
Downtown?
along downtown, that sounds like it might help power up the brewery.
Doubtful.
They're two separate things, or?
Yeah, they are separate, because powering up a brewery is a PG&E thing, and it has to be paid for by the building owner, unless the building owner is passing it on to their tenant.
Well, it sounds like downtown needs a big old trench with a bunch of improvements in it,
Well,
you know.
the grant is going to improve the alleyway on both sides. That's what the grant is going to do. But the utilities are a separate thing. You're talking about the utilities, and that's PG&E.
Okay.
Right,
I
and so-
was just wondering, because you
Yeah.
said two things in the same place.
Right.
And you're saying
Right.
they're separate.
No, what we're hoping for is that, at the very least, we end up able to underground the utility wires that are there for the existing. These are two separate things, because some tenants require more power, that's where you have to do a different kind of improvement. And especially with buildings, we all know, those buildings are very old, and who would have contemplated way back then things that need that kind of power? But no. Or there was no electricity when they were built, you're on horseback, I don't know. Yes. Yeah. Thing at a time, yes.
Yeah, well, first, thank you for all you're doing and the way you're doing it. What's the best way to find out more about why Gilroy campaign?
Oh, I would say, the best way to find out about why Gilroy, well, you could either contact the Chamber of Commerce or the City of Gilroy. If you contact the Chamber of Commerce, that would be Mark Turner. If you want to contact the City of Gilroy, Corinne Decker.
But in terms of like a website, or if I was trying to get an elevator speech on why Gilroy and how we're being represented, what
So
would you say? What would
Okay, I would go to the press release that we sent out on the web, that had our stuff there, and that would be, can that be found on our website, Jimmy? Do you do the press release? Yeah.
You can also go to visit Gilroy and the Gilroy Chamber of Commerce, they both have information about that.
If you have trouble, let me know, because otherwise I would just go to any one of those sites and then in the search bar, just say,
Why Gilroy?
why Gilroy? Yeah, exactly. And it's a campaign that's running for just 2022, but it's in every month of 2022. And you'll see the press release there, and the verbiage of the press release is what we're pushing.
Well, if I go somewhere and somebody asks me, I want to be ready to go.
Yeah, to say why. Yeah, it's our location. We have such easy access to 101. If 101 were just not the parking lot, it is so much of the time.
Well, I kind of like some of the other things we have around here too. So.
Great, thank you. Thank you. Yes.
The contractual arrangement with Glen Loma and the 10th Street Bridge, explain that quite clearly. Let's talk about the fire station, because back in '05, when the original contract for the fire station was signed, there was an agreed upon price, and cost of living was based on an industry-wide index, and the cost should parallel. Now we find that the cost is so much more. Did the index fail us, or have there been intervening issues causing the cost of the fire station to go up, and they're not on the hook for it?
If I knew the specifics as to why gas prices are almost at $7 a gallon too, I could be making a lot of money. I can't tell you the intricacies of why, just that the construction costs are what they are, and to build a fire station today is more than what it was anticipated at the time, and has exceeded the escalator that is built into the contract.
Is it because it's a fire station and not a general commercial building? Fire stations cost more per square foot than normal buildings?
I don't know, okay, Jimmy, go
There
ahead.
are numerous reasons why a fire station costs more now than it did in 2005, and one is that the fire station is now considered a medical facility. If you want to jack the cost up of something designated as a medical facility, that was not contemplated in 2005. If you want to play Monday morning quarterback with the escalator, CPI was the increase from 2005, and in hindsight, we probably should use construction, can't think of the term, construction price increases as opposed, it would have helped bridge that gap. But at the end of the day, most of the funding will still come from Glen Loma. We are looking at a $9 or $10 million project in which they'll cover probably about 85% of.
My understanding is that the scope of the fire station has been greatly shrunk.
Well, there's a point where you can only shrink it so far. And there are some things that you cannot have. And some of the things that, the example like a community room. Community rooms are great to have, great facilities, but do you want to pay an extra $2 million on top of your fire station? Those are nice to have things that we have to weigh when we actually get ready to construct it. But we'll have a fire station, we'll be able to pay for it. We spend more time worrying about how we're going to operate it than we do finding money to
That
construct it.
also is the cost of the manpower. The man, that's expensive, that's an ongoing investment.
Yeah, that's all on the city, yes.
Okay, I'll go to Dion.
I have a question for Jimmy. Jimmy, with the rising price of diesel, it's went up $4 since the election. And I noticed this morning it went up 20 cents a gallon overnight. Like my business, we pass it on to the customer. That's for all businesses. City can't pass it on. How is it affecting the city?
Well, I think our budget for fuel goes up, but some of our vehicles are hybrid. We're converting the fleet over time to, to more plug-in type vehicles. You'll see chargers installed here actually in the next probably year. We don't, we absorb it, but you're right, we don't pass it on. It's just another increase that we have, and we use our revenue. So it just means we don't have revenue to spend on something else.
All right. Yeah, oh, do you want me to go, Tom? Okay, Tom?
You mentioned the poor condition of the roads in Gilroy and how the council's attacking it. But there's a lot of money available, or has been, through the federal government, which is where the United Bridge Grant is coming back. And I understand the state has a lot of money for infrastructure. Have we looked for grants for road improvements that we could get to fix some of those roads?
Yeah, we're looking into as many grants as we can possibly look into. Right now, if you start throwing too much at it, you're going to dilute the significance of where you really want them to focus. So we're thrilled to have the downtown one, which is not a federal grant, comes from Caltrans. The $19.5 million for the 10th Street Bridge is the biggie. And the rest of it, we've got upcoming on our next council agenda will be to allocate SB1 funds into the same street improvement project. So we're doing what we can. If you have very specific questions to grant stuff, you might want to ask them directly. But I am very proud. I'm proud of our relationship with our city administrator. That's a very important relationship to have between mayor and city administrator to get things accomplished. And then with Corinne Decker, who's just been hired for economic development stuff, and Jimmy's importance that he has been placing on going after grant money that, things go in cycles. Years ago, Gilroy applied for a lot of grants, but you don't get them. So then you have to analyze how much time and effort and staff time goes into things that don't amount to anything. So you start to kind of dwindle away from that. Well, since COVID, all these grants have become more available. And so we are on top of that. I think we've been very good about the grants that we applied for. But do you have anything more specific to add to that, Jimmy? Do you want to?
Yeah, I would say to answer Tom's question is that getting a lot of money creates another issue. Is how are we going to get these projects out? Labor force isn't there right now for us. Cost of construction, cost of fuel. So if we were to get enough money to repair every street right now, we couldn't do it. It wouldn't be possible. So I think right now we have about the capacity that we have committed to, but anymore we would be setting unrealistic expectations of folks to get this stuff done. The workforce isn't there, the costs are going up, and we're pretty happy with the level we're able to provide for the next 5 years, but I don't think we can do a lot more without a major influx of labor.
Yeah, I find this interesting. They're granting us use of our money that we pay to have these things done. Just reminding us that. It's so nice. Thank you.
That's a whole other thing. But I'm just grateful that I at least have the support of this council, because if you watch council meetings, we're not always all in sync. But on repairing our streets, at least getting the $2 million of funding that we've added to it, is certainly a step in the right direction and a step that has not been taken by Gilroy in quite a few years. So now my goal is to make sure that that money is there for year 2, 3, 4, and 5, so that the 5-year plan, even though it will exclude some streets that are just beyond, that are in that PCI score that's just too low, look at what it will do. And, so we don't have more streets going into those lower scores. And then with each passing year, we have to look at what the circumstances are at the time. Maybe labor things get better, maybe construction costs level out, I don't know. But I'm just personally was tired of seeing our streets really not get addressed beyond the minimum amount that we were getting from Measure B and SB1. That was it, and we're putting an amount into it. Okay.
I wanted to follow up on the question about the fire station. So, when is it going to be built? And if you can't build it, can you give a timeline of when it could be put in the budget to man it? Because you've known for a while that everybody wants that station. It's kind of the last 2 elections was a topic. So it's got to be on the plan. Even if the plan is 10 years from now, it's got to at least be on the plan so the residents understand that it's coming. So
yeah. So I'm going to start with Jimmy, and if you want to add to that, fine. It is on the plan, right? We know what we are doing in the meantime, because we can't get it built right now, is we are moving from, we're not just doing, we've scrapped the plan of just doing this, the temporary thing that we've got right now. And we are going to do more of a less temporary, more of a structure that can be part of what the ultimate thing will be. I hope I'm saying that right.
Yeah.
Okay. If you want to come up here, because Jimmy, well, because this is, you can imagine, this is something that we are on top of, and I'm not in the day-to-day the way he is. I just know that we're on it, and I know that it's going to be, we're scrapping that whole very temporary thing because we just don't see this coming as quickly as we hoped. And we know that it's not okay just to leave it the way it is. And so that's why we're moving to this direction.
Yeah. We actually had a whole study session on the history of the fire station and where we're going, but the one thing to remember is nothing happens by law until the 1100 unit is permitted. Clinton doesn't have to give us a dime until that moment happens. And so we've been spending 2 years trying to get them to speed that up. And so we kind of just said, you know what, we're not getting anywhere here, so we're going to do something else. If you know, we have the teak building over on the ranch side of Christmas Hill Park that is a very substandard facility to house firefighters. And so we had attempted to work with Glen Loma to go to the location where the permanent station is going to be, with a modular unit and a bay for a couple of apparatus and a place to house the firefighters. They have tied that to everything else. They won't let one piece go. And so we kind of have given up on that. You're going to think I'm insane when I say this. Guess where we want to put the temporary fire station? Exactly where the 10th Street Bridge is going to go through. Why? Because we own the property. 2, even if we got the $19 million in grant, that bridge would not be built for at least 5 years. Due to environmental, getting all the funding, getting all those things. So we're going to be coming to council discussing the creation of the new temporary fire station, which is a couple of modules and a bay, but it meets all the needs we need for a facility, 1, in the Glen Loma area, and 2, is a medical facility, and 3, buys us at least 5 years to have an ability to respond to calls out there. The call volume's going up. Yeah, we know that you're not going to get an argument for us that we don't need this. And then we'll also be staffing it at a little bit lower level than we would a normal fire station. So we have to do something. This is our plan. A little weird to put fire station in the place you know how the bridge is going to go through, but the timing it should line up. Hopefully by that time, the other thing to remember about Glen Loma, that project is not the size it was originally designed to be. And so they have, in some ways, perhaps made sure they stay under that limit because they're probably not highly motivated to write us a $9 million check quite yet. I think they're waiting as long as they can. So there's a lot of things in play. There's only so much we can do because we made an agreement with them, and they've been good partners in keeping to that agreement. But we also have to realize that we can't force them unless we want to change the agreement. And of course, if we want to change it, they're going to want something in return. I mean, they're just not going to do it out of the kindness of their heart. So yeah, that's about 2 years of work summed up in about 3 minutes.
Yeah.
So at the end, right now, if you go down what they call 10th Street and that Glen Loma, it dead ends into
Right.
property. You're talking there.
That is city-owned property. It is in a neighborhood. We're gonna work with the neighbors to make sure that we're not blaring sirens and not making a lot of noise. But it's a good location.
Yeah, it is. But it's in the works.
Yeah, it's been a tough one. This was the whole subject of a whole different coffee with the mayor thing, because it's just such a big thing.
This would be on the Glen Loma side or the school side?
I think on the Glen Loma side.
On the Glen Loma side.
Yeah.
You had a question over here, correct?
Yeah, transportation and safety. I like the train. We're the last country in the world probably don't have a high-speed train, but I also believe in slow growth, and stopping here, I think that could be a problem because, you know, you can get a lot of people in from Monterey and Los Angeles. So the train should stop in Los Angeles and in San Francisco. Otherwise, I think you can have a lot of growth around here. I was born and raised in Capture Valley. The highest building we got, it's 45 feet. Well, I mean, that's as high as you can build. But the buildings there, I've been there 50 years, the highest building is a hospital. But you gotta think about it. We all lived in the Bay Area, you know. What happens when you start letting a lot of, you know, people stop in your town? Could we control it? Do you like slow growth? Do you like to farm? It could, yeah, it could raise your property, you know, real high. But also, I'm going to San Francisco right now. I got a lot of friends there that they own $1 million homes, but they can't come out of their homes. You know, it's not safe. So, also riding on BART 52 years, I only rode on BART a couple times. You know, so, and then, you know, safety, there's a lot of safety concerns too, being the security guard, with all the things going on in the news. That's my second question.
What was the question?
With security in Gilroy. So
Security, you mean police department? What do you mean?
police, schools, just being anywhere in public, you know, as far as being safe. Do you have any plans on protecting the community a little bit better than what's going on right now, as far as being in public?
Well, there are no plans to, I wish I could say there are plans to increase our police force and to spend even more
Like
money
in schools,
than we do.
start, you know.
Well, in schools, we've just recently approved an MOU together with the school district, a memorandum of understanding with the school district to allow for 2 police officers to be on the school campuses. We share that expense. And that was not a unanimous council decision. That comes with, believe it or not, you know, however you feel about law enforcement. There are those that disagree. There's always those that disagree. But the majority of the council supported what we call school resource officers being on school campuses. And the school district very much supported it and wanted school resource officers. So I'm proud to say that we have that. And that is a shared expense, 50-50. We do that year to year. We asked the school district if they wanted to do something that was longer term, so they didn't have to come back before the council every year to ask for matching funding to that. And for now, they want to keep it at year to year. And so that is the situation with the school district. Okay?
Thumbs up.
Great. Yes. Question over here.
This is kind of a comment and a question at the same time. I work with Denise Turner and sometime a while back, and about 8 years with the graffiti and pavement with Rachel before she retired.
Rachel, we need to.
And we've done a lot of work. But here's my question, I guess. The homeless thing right there on the 152 there, the Highway 101, is starting to build back up again. I realize and I know that that's Caltrans property and we're constrained with, you know, whatever we can do, but it's kind of building back up again. So my question to you is, would it be okay or for us personal as individuals to call Caltrans to affect that, or what are we doing as a city?
We as a city contact Caltrans all the time. We are District 4 for Caltrans. Every other Thursday, we have virtual meetings, online meetings with Caltrans District 4. So we have that direct line of communication. When you're in those meetings, though, I'm sorry to say, and you hear the same thing everywhere in the county, you start to appreciate just what Caltrans is under. You know, in trying to get to this, and every time they expend the resources to clean up, it is just a matter of time before it comes. It's a problem. It's a problem, and the problem is not for lack of communication to Caltrans.
But citizens can call.
So, yeah, no, to answer your question, if you want to call.
Yes, everybody should
You can
call.
call your elected state officials.
Yeah, you can,
Couldn't hurt,
yeah, District 4, we are District 4, if you don't know that, for Caltrans. All right, anybody else? Well, thank you guys, thank you all. I hope you found this informative. Thank you for coming out and taking the time. Go enjoy the rest of the day.